I'm Joe Haddow, and this is our series of interviews with the Theakston Old Peculier Crime Novel of the Year Award longlistees, produced and curated by Harrogate International Festivals in partnership with Theakston Old Peculier, WHSmiths and the Express. And welcome to you, and thanks for joining us. Today I'm joined by an award-winning author who started his career as a journalist. Since becoming a full-time author, his novels have sold more than 2 million copies in the UK alone. And he won this very award back in 2017. It's great to be here chatting with you. Welcome, Chris Brookmyre.
Hello, nice to see you again, Joe.
And you. Shame it's not across the lawn in Harrogate with a beer in our hands, but
yes,
you know.
Yes. One day.
One day in the future. Where do we find you today?
At home, like everybody else, in Bothwell, and just outside Glasgow, with the sun shining, which we're very grateful for.
Yeah, I bet. Can't spend too much time in it, but it's better that it's there than not.
Yeah. Well, they've opened up certain restrictions now, so I'm allowed to go out more than once a day, apparently, which is fairly crucial for me because I have to go outside to walk when I'm writing.
Oh, really?
I tend to find that I work by walking and dictating into my phone, and then I come home and I transcribe my thoughts and then elaborate upon those transcriptions. But if I can't get out to walk, I can't work. I mean, before the lockdown, through the winter months, I was to be seen looking like a deep-sea fisherman as I would walk through the driving rain, with trying to keep the rain off my phone, which was, and my hands would be freezing without the cold and the wet. But I'd rather that than trying to work at the computer.
Yeah, wow. So do you ever just take a walk for the ideas to percolate, or is it always with a plan to sort of dictate and talk about them?
It's both. Sometimes I'm just thinking very generally, or if I'm trying to get my head around the big picture for a novel, I'll often go for a run where I won't be dictating anything, but there's a kind of triage process whereby the sheer effort of going for a run just purges all sorts of unnecessary thoughts, and all you can think about is the story. But it's more the grand themes and the macro of the story rather than dialogue and description. But yeah, if I'm out for a walk, it's usually to dictate ideas.
Well, let's talk about your latest standalone thriller then that's been longlisted for the award. It's not part of a Jack Parlebane series, but it's about a family and about a holiday and repercussions. What can you tell us about the Temples?
Well, they're a family that have been in the public eye because the novel is very much about that, about being subject to public scrutiny. And they're a family that have gathered at their holiday villas. They own a couple of villas around a pool in Portugal, and they're gathered there as a sort of memorial holiday because the patriarch of this family, Professor Max Temple, has recently died. And essentially Max's wife, Celia, has been trying to get her extended family all together back to these villas for the past 16 years, but she's never had sufficient guilt leverage until Max dies, and she uses that guilt leverage to get everyone to come back. But the reason they've been reluctant to gather there is that in 2002, Max's granddaughter, Neve, who was a toddler at the time, tragically fell off a cliff and died and was never seen again. And the sort of suspicion and mutual recrimination that descended upon the family has meant they weren't all in a hurry to go back to that villa. I mean, they've all been there in little groups, but they've never been keen to all gather together because there's just so much bad blood in the family.
We cut between timelines. There's 2018, there's 2002, and the chapters are from different characters' point of views. How did you tackle the writing of that? Did you just write it as we read it, or did you sort of do the years separately and bring them together? I tend not to write in the sequence that a novel is written. So, I mean, it's a couple of years ago now, and if I cast my mind back, I probably wrote large sections
from each character's point of view. And I think I wrote lots of the sort of present day chapters in a row, and then I would write a whole load of 2002 chapters in a row. I mean, I didn't write the two timelines completely separately, but at the same time, I would hop back and forth between them. Once I got a bit of momentum in one timeline, I would stick with it. Mm-hmm. And then it became a question of editing together, and that took a bit of thought, because I'd have to think, well, what am I revealing at each stage? So there was a lot of thought going into what would be revealed when, and also an attempt to create a rhythm between those different characters' perspectives, so that you're not spending too long looking at the world through one pair of eyes.
Yeah, well, it's really pacey. It's a fantastic book, and the chapters just sort of come at you, and you do want to just carry on reading, which I really, really enjoyed. Talking about the award very briefly, you've been shortlisted many times for this prize, and you won it, as I mentioned, back in 2017. It would have been for Black Widow, which I loved. How does it feel to be longlisted again for this? This award, which is the biggest award in crime fiction. Yeah,
it feels fantastic. This year especially, even the fact that the award is still taking place, is great that it's one of the things that can still take place, because it's not so reliant upon us gathering together. And for me, it's a particular fillip for this book, because I had these grand plans that when it came out in paperback, that it would be a holiday read, that the type of book that it was coming out in the early spring, and the hope was that word of mouth would spread, so that when people went on holiday, it would be literally a swimming pool book, because it's got a swimming pool in the cover. It's about some of the good things that happen on holiday, how on holidays the time you can tell the truth to each other, but that sometimes is something we all come to regret. And so I had these grand plans for it, but nobody's going on holiday. But so it means a lot to get recognition for the book, because I suppose when you win something like the Theakstons, there's always this sense that, can you reach those heights again? And it's a great boost to the ego, and just a great endorsement to be listed for a prize, especially when you see the panoply of magnificent fiction that's on the long list this year.
Oh, it's just a wonderful list, as I've said many times to all the authors that I'm talking to. Do you have a favourite or some favourites on that list that you've managed to read?
Now I've gone blank. I particularly loved Conviction by Denise Miner. I think that was a real treat, because there's a great joy of escapism, which you can relish all the more now. Anything that involves travel is something we're all going to appreciate as a work of fiction. Conspiracy theories play quite an important role in your book, just to go back to it. And I noticed at the end of the novel, you offer further reading on the subject. You mentioned a couple of books if you're interested in sort of pursuing it further, non-fiction books. What drew you to read about that in the first place, or to explore that for a device? I think I've always been kind of interested in the psychology of conspiracy theories more than the theories themselves, because you see so many consistencies among the different theories. They often work on the same principles, and I think I was just drawn to I guess it's the sort of psychological seductiveness of a simple explanation, but also the flaws in our logic and our thinking that give rise to conspiracy theories are often the same things that we exploit as crime writers in order to construct these intriguing narratives. And I would actually make the case that crime fiction is partly to blame for conspiracy theories. I think that crime fiction gives you not only a satisfactory explanation for complex things, but crucially it often gives you a twist. And the appeal of the twist is that that when a twist is good, it changes the meaning of everything you thought you already understood. And unfortunately, that's the seductive property of conspiracy theories. Things you think you already understand, they offer a twist, a new explanation, except they don't offer evidence for it. They just offer that endorphin rush of being exposed to occult knowledge. So with Fallen Angel, I wanted to look at how, in the absence of an explanation for an event such as the disappearance of a child, the longer it goes on, the more we fill in the vacuum with our own made-up theory. And I wanted to show how intolerable that is to the people who are at the heart of that tragedy.
One of the sort of standout scenes I remember is when Max is on that TV show promoting a book, and there's someone who's got a conspiracy theory about the moon landing, and then he just sort of rips him apart, and it's quite a joy to read. I imagine quite fun to write as well.
Yeah, it was one of the most enjoyable sequences, except the sting in the tail is that this is meant to have taken place in about 2002, and now you will find the very same moon landing conspiracy theories writ even larger, believed more widely than they were back then. And it's no matter how many times you sort of take apart the logic or show the flaws in the conspiracy theory, it just bobs back up. I think one of the things that attracted me to it was probably the same ideas, the same principles as when I was writing Attack of the Unsinkable Rubber Ducks, because that was all about belief in psychics and mediums and the paranormal. And it's the same thing, no matter how much evidence you try and hammer down the throats of people reporting these things, they still seem immune to it. They bob back up, and the conspiracy theories never seem to die. In fact, all the evidence you can range against it becomes part of the conspiracy theory. There's always a way of saying, but you are part of the conspiracy, or the evidence you're putting forward has been fabricated in order to discredit this conspiracy.
One final question before we go. We've already talked about, the prize and being longlisted for the award, but I just wondered what the Theakston Old Peculier Crime Novel of the Year award actually means to you as someone who's won it, but also is once again on the list.
The award means so much to me. It's the biggest prize in crime fiction, certainly in the UK and probably wider than that. And so I think in a way it feels like the sort of vindication of your peers. You feel that when you see the long list and then you see the short list, and you think, well, if my book is being considered among these fantastic writers, these fantastic novels, then it says an awful lot about that book. And so to win it was one of the most special moments of my entire career.
That was a great year as well. I just remember there being such a great atmosphere in the room, as there always is at Harrogate. But that year was very sunny, and there was just loads of people there that seemed to stay for the whole weekend. And it was a very memorable one, I think, 2017. And I didn't even win it. Fallen Angel by Chris Brookmyre is published by Abacus, and just a reminder that you get to vote for the shortlist. So if you want to see this book on the shortlist, then you have to go to HarrogateTheakstonCrimeAward.com and you can put your vote there. Or if you haven't read Fallen Angel yet, then you should, and why not buy it from WHSmiths and then go and vote. Chris, it's been lovely to catch up with you, and although we haven't managed to see each other in person or indeed over a curry, it's been great to chat. And what are you working on at the moment? Is there a new book in the offing? Yeah,
I've finished my own solo standalone novel, which should be out in the sort of early spring 2021, although the title has not been finalised yet, so I can't really say that. And my wife Marissa and I are working together on the new Ambrose Parry novel just now.
Great. Well, we wish you all the best for those, and we wish you best of luck with the shortlist, and thank you again for talking to us.
Pleasure, Joe.